Hello, Spooky Angel, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this insane Venom mask. I'm extremely happy with how it came out, and it looks really awesome hanging on my wall right now. Without further ado, let's hop into the tutorial. To start off the tutorial, I am making the eyepieces for Venom's eyes. I am copying the same exact method that I did for my Carnage tutorial. However, for this look, you're not actually going to be seeing out of them, and I didn't really think about that beforehand. You could just bypass this part and completely make them out of Model Magic. So I'm not going to make this part super detailed on it because you could just go to my Carnage tutorial and watch the tutorial on that. But you're not going to be looking out of the eyes anyway, so Model Magic would be just fine. Highly recommend using a styrofoam head for this piece because this mask is so big. It's just going to be much easier to create this on a styrofoam piece. I am taking some moldable wire. I bought this off of Amazon so that I can start creating the jaw piece on this. My past two Beetlejuice looks already got me prepared for how I was going to make my Venom because I've been using the same method on those and just used it for this one. I wanted my Venom to look crazy with a huge jaw, so that's what I'm going for in this tutorial. You can definitely make it smaller. I'm adding Plasticine Clay to the styrofoam head just to start morphing the face a little bit and then also have a structure for my wire to stick into. Before you go too far into making the mask, it's important to think about where you're going to see and breathe out of the mask. For the eyes for this, I am making the eye holes right underneath where I'm going to have Venom's eyes because I want his mouth to be so large. I'm going to be actually looking out of his mouth instead of out of the eyes because the eyes actually need to be a little further back and I won't be able to see out of them. I already had Plasticine Clay on the styrofoam head because I was working on a Beetlejuice look before this, so I didn't want to strip it off if I was just going to add it back. But I just used a little bit of the Plasticine Clay just to keep the eyes intact and then just to see where my own eyes would be at. Since this mask is so large and in charge, I'm taking some foil and just making a base. This is going to make the mask as lightweight as possible. It will start to get heavier the more that we add on, so just keeping in mind that you want to try to keep it as lightweight as possible as much as you can. This is where the Plasticine Clay didn't really matter if it was already on the mask or not because I wanted to use foil to build up most of the portion of this mask so that it could be lightweight. To hold everything together, I like to use duct tape or whatever kind of strong tape that you can find. This mask felt like a total trust the process situation, and some days were a little more tough than others. And when I say days, it's because I mean it. I spent days on this dang thing. Here's a quick little video just to show how it's looking so far. Now, how are we going to breathe out of this? I am taking a small Dixie cup and I'm putting it exactly where my mouth is going to be, and that's going to create like a small area for me to breathe into this cup. And I'm just going to use duct tape and I'm going to duct tape it down to the styrofoam mask. Next, we're going to be making the tongue. And what do you think we're going to make it out of? Yeah, that's right, foil. This time we are going to be using some hot glue to glue down the tongue. This is going to keep it really intact. Shout out Elmers because I did use a few of their methods that they use in their Venom tutorial. This goes without saying, but hot glue is extremely hot, so be very careful when you're working with it. When you're working with it with foil, it just is that much more intense when you go to hold it. So I'm using a fan to cool it down quicker. You could use an oven mitt on your hand as well to protect it. Next, we're making teeth. Venom has lots of teeth. I am taking a cup and I'm just going to boil the water in it. I usually put it in for 2 minutes and that makes it extremely hot. Once it's done, you just want to take it out very carefully. And I take these moldable beads, and they are moldable plastic, and you can melt them down and shape them into whatever you want. When they go completely clear, that's when you know they're ready to rock and roll. Shout out to the image on the side. You can see that reference image I'm looking at for Venom. These beads are so hot, and so is the water. I like to use a fork to help pull out some of the moldable plastic. I roll it into a little worm, and then I keep my hand flatter on one side. That way, when I'm rolling it, it'll roll it right into a sharp little tooth already for me. And then if you need to go in and make it sharper, then you can, and you can just continue to roll that edge. Venom has a lot of teeth, so make sure that you make a lot of teeth in various sizes, some larger, some smaller. It's so much better to have a lot more teeth on hand rather than having less than, because later on if you have to go back and make more, it is a kind of a pain. And I did actually have to come back and make more teeth. He just has a lot, and it looks way cooler when you put a lot more teeth in the mouth. Make more teeth than you see right here, because I had to come back and make more teeth. This was not enough. Next, we're making paper mache, just like you used to make in school. To make it, you're going to use equal parts water to flour. That's only if you use regular white flour. I did not have white flour, so I did have to use whole wheat flour. And when you use whole wheat flour, you do have to add in a little bit of extra water because it just thickens up so quickly. I also added some salt to the mixture, and that is to hopefully help it from molding in the future. And I also added a little bit of Elmer's glue just to give it a little bit more of a paste-like consistency. Now cover the whole thing in little ripped up pieces of paper dipped in the paper mache and have some fun. Thankfully, I usually will keep any random scraps of paper that come in any like PR packages. I keep random boxes that I get in the PR packages. I'll keep ribbon, and I'm not even kidding you. A lot of times all that stuff ends up coming in handy and I need it later. I feel like I'm such a package hoarder, but at the same time, I always end up finding a use for it rather than throwing things away and then going to the store to repurchase the thing that I could have just used if I would have just held on to it. When you're working with the tongue, the paper mache makes it way too heavy, so I only did half the tongue, and then I waited for the rest of the paper mache to dry, and then I completed the rest of the tongue. It actually was weighing so much on the tongue, even though I only did half, that whenever I allowed it to dry, I actually used a tripod with a piece of yarn to hold up the tongue to keep it in place because the weight was just making it way down too far. This will happen to the jaw of the mouth too, so just be very cautious on how many layers of paper mache that you put on, or if you need it to be a little bit stronger, then you can just take a little bit more wire and just reinforce that foundation that you already created. You guys have seen me make this a million times. We're going to make some liquid latex paste. I use very cheap liquid latex from Amazon. The watery the liquid latex is, the better, because it'll absorb a good amount of the flour and create a paste. If you use a really thick liquid latex, I just feel like you're wasting quality latex when you could just use something thinner and cheaper. Measurements on the liquid latex paste, I would say it's half the amount of flour to liquid latex. You can always add a little bit more flour to your mixture, but once you add too much flour, it'll make it super thick like cookie dough, and then you just have to toss it. I'm adding a little bit of food coloring to this mixture because I'm going to be working on the inside of the mouth first for my Venom. I love using food colors inside of my liquid latex paste. That's a little something that I started doing, and I love it. I think it actually just helps with the foundation of the paint job right before you start. It's been about an hour of drying time for the paper mache, and I'm just jumping right into the jaw of this mask to start structuring it up a lot stronger, and then I'll come back and work on the tongue. To apply the liquid latex paste, I actually prefer using more of a butter knife or a palette knife. I'm using a fork here, and it's so much easier to just use a knife because you can just apply as much as you want and then quickly just spread it out. To smooth the liquid latex paste, I dip my finger constantly in the liquid latex and smooth it out as best as possible. The liquid latex paste does dry in a couple minutes, so I usually just work in sections. That way I can lay the liquid latex paste down and then come back with my finger with liquid latex and smooth it out in little sections. Once you have everything smoothed out for the gum line, you can just start adding all of the teeth in. I added all of my teeth in, and then the next day I was like, you know what? I should really consider adding more teeth to this because it just doesn't seem like it has enough. So I actually went back in and I added more liquid latex paste in there and more teeth, which is kind of a pain. So if you can just get it right the first time, then that's awesome. Some of the teeth ended up being extremely heavy, so you can see the teeth kind of like falling, and I'll keep picking them up and putting them back. It's just because the piece itself is so big, and there's not like a way that I can lay the piece down really to work on it because there's so many different parts on it. So I just continue to add in the teeth and then just continue to move, and I'll just keep pushing them back into place. Enjoy this super sped up time lapse video for you guys just so you can see all of the little teethers like falling. It's so funny. It was such a pain when I was doing it because I was like, I wish they would just stay. Honestly, thinking about it, you could probably do some Model Magic teeth and make them out of Model Magic, and then they'd be lighter. Model Magic is one of my favorite products to use. It's an air dry clay and it's super duper easy to make anything out of. The only discrepancy I have found with it is that sometimes it'll crack, and that can be quite a bit of an annoyance, especially if you need something with like a completely smooth surface. Then you'd have to figure out a way to go back in and make it smoother. Anyways, back to the video. I mixed up a liquid latex paste, and this time I used a black food dye inside of it. Even though it looks gray right now, once it dries, it'll actually be really black. This is where I have the tongue actually set up on a tripod off to the side because it's literally so heavy, and I don't even have the rest of it done yet. I did the tail end of the tongue like at the very end. I'm using some of the liquid latex paste to create a little bit of a lip as well for Venom. And then once it dries down a little bit, you can actually push the liquid latex in a little bit if it still has a little softness inside of the liquid latex. The liquid latex will almost like encapsulate and create more of like a skin on the outside. And then you can always just go and like push on the mask, and that will reshape it. It's one of my favorite little techniques. Here's a quick view of Venom before he dries. You can see his tongue on the tripod. And then also I added more teeth later on, and all of the teeth. I actually take all of the teeth out and then make sure you line all of them up in a row so you remember exactly how you put them in the mouth, because it does already create an indent inside of the liquid latex. So you want to be able to stick it right back in there. Our guy is so gummy, and he looks so sad without his teeth. Not as furious without those teeth. I'm using Mayron Makeup body paints to paint the interior of the mouth. In the background, I'm just watching Venom 1 and 2 over and over on repeat just to keep that Venom energy going. For the tongue, just to add a little bit more detail to it, I am taking my hot glue. I'm just adding dots all over the top of the tongue all the way down to the end. Then I take a red body paint and I just cover all of the taste buds with that. That just kind of blends them right into the tongue. And it totally blends them right in. Pile of bodies, pile of heads. Yep, I'm watching Venom. I'm taking some super glue, and we are going to super glue all of the teeth right back into the mouth. If you wanted to, you could totally pre-paint them beforehand, but in this case, I didn't really want to pre-paint them. I just wanted to go in and put them all back and then paint them all together when they were in the mask. At this point, I've made more teeth and I started super gluing more teeth. It looks like he actually has almost 3 rows of teeth. For the bottom of the jaw, I couldn't just super glue teeth because there's just nowhere to put them. So I took more liquid latex and I actually added a little bit more of an interior edge, and then I put more teeth inside. I also added some liquid latex paste to the upper jawline to mask the teeth. The black liquid latex paste dried so black that you do not need to paint it. It is literally perfect. I am taking my glue gun, because I cannot speak, oh my gosh. I'm taking my glue gun with a black glue stick. I bought a bunch of black glue sticks actually when I did my Carnage look, and I still have a bunch left over, so I was like, perfect timing. And I'm just making lots of squiggles with my hot glue gun. To paint the teeth, I'm using my Mayron makeup palette and I'm using browns and grays right at the root and then clearing off my brush to pull the rest of the color down the tooth to give it a little bit more of a transparency effect rather than it being a completely painted tooth. To make Venom shinier, I am going on the tongue and the teeth with Mod Podge. Mod Podge is a clear polish. However, you do need to make sure that whenever you paint it on, it is a little bit more of a thinner coat. The thicker the coat, the more it's going to actually show up white rather than being clear, and that is rather unfortunate when that happens. So just make sure it's nice and thin. You can tell that the mask has gotten heavier because the styrofoam head is not straight up anymore. It's actually tilted towards me. Even though I have it duct taped to secure it to be as straight as possible, it's still not helping it out. For our last step, I mixed up some gelatin with black food dye so I could create this stringy texture where his jaw is opening up on the side. I tried to do this with hot glue and I could not get it to work and it did not want to stay. It just kept wanting to fall. So I figured I'll try gelatin. Sometimes it can be a little bit easier to create more of a stringy texture. So it did take a little bit of a time to try to get it to stick to the mask. However, at the end, it did work out. My last step in this is mixing up another batch of gelatin, and this time I mixed it up with Makeup Murder's Neon Poison Pigment in lime green. That way it would match the reference photo I originally was looking at because I felt so inspired by that picture to do this look at this size. Here is our king, and he is ready for the body paint. The makeup has been applied and the mask is ready for application. I'm going to take some powder and just powder around the edges of that mask. That's going to help whenever you go to pull the mask up so that it doesn't stick, the liquid latex doesn't stick to itself. Any areas where you got a lot of powder and you need it not to be on Venom because he needs to be black, then I just spray it with some water. Here is the final look. With the mask on, the makeup. What do you guys think? This look is so crazy. Oh my gosh. I'm proud. I'm so proud of my Venom. Look at this guy. He's fucking wild. I'm like, I feel like it's like actually going off screen. Like you can't even see like the full thing. I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl Venom. So here it is. Thank you guys so much for watching this very long and in-depth tutorial. I am super proud with this Venom. It definitely was a trial and error process throughout this, and I'm super stoked with the end result. I think it looks so sick, and it looks really awesome on my wall with all of my masks. So I'm very proud to add him to the collection. I love Venom so much, and I love you guys so much. Thank you forever for watching my videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!